welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. And this evening, my guest is Stacy Peterson from Peoria Public Library's Programming Department. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Tricia.
Well, you know I had to have you come back because we just keep adding more and more events. You guys are so busy. There's three of you creating events. There's only one of me to talk about them.
And for the shortest month, we really do have a bounty of things going on in February.
It is. When one compiles the numbers, it's just like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do all this? But I don't have to do it. I just have to talk about it. So thank you so much for taking time out to come and help me tell everybody about all this stuff that's going on, because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Where do you even want to start?
Well, February is, of course, we've got two huge things going on. We've got Black History Month and we've got Valentine's Day.
Yes.
They're both unavoidable things, and we've got a lot of things planned. So you can pick where you'd like to start with either of those.
Well, we're going to have a whole show on Black history, so let's just do a real quick summary.
Okay.
And remind people that anything they miss here, they can find on our web calendar or pick up our passages or kid events, newsletters. Yeah. But let's start with Black history, because there's a biggie there.
A biggie there. And in fact, as far as I know, it might be one of the first kind of things that we've ever done in the library to acknowledge local son Richard Pryor. I mean, I think that's it. We, of course, always have crafts, and we've got our stories, and we've got movies that celebrate Black history. But I think it's important to note that last year, following the success of last year's Black History program with local rapper Brandon, also known as Exhibit, he invited a lot of local poets to come in and do spoken word. He does a lot of poetry slams nationally and locally, and he's very, very big in mentoring people. And one of the very first things that we did for Black History Month was, of course, this poetry night celebrating Richard Pryor. Following that, though, I believe it's on the 17th at Lincoln Branch, we're going to do a Richard Pryor trivia night. And this has never been done. We know that for certain. Yeah. There will be t-shirts involved, and I've heard that they're very cool as some of the prizes. But we're going to actually do kind of speed round trivia involving Richard Pryor, his life, his movies. And then we're going to cap it off by doing, hopefully, a viewing of Brewster's Millions. That is the tentative movie scheduled for that evening. So we're really hoping people can come down to the Lincoln Branch, enjoy celebrating Richard Pryor in the neighborhood where he grew up. While you're down on that part of town, go to the Proctor Center, where he spent many afternoons of his youth. Make sure you visit the new sculpture that was done by Rashad Reed that was unveiled late last year. Beautiful sculpture. And, celebrate somebody that we don't get a chance to celebrate very often.
Yeah, Peoria's got a funny relationship with Richard Pryor. Those of us who grew up when he was becoming famous in his movies and his TV shows, I just laugh when I even hear his name, because he's so funny. But we have folks in Peoria who still aren't as accepting of his humor and as groundbreaking as he was. So we're glad Peoria Public Library is stepping forward and devoting two different things, an open mic night, and then the Brewster's Million and the trivia shout out.
And I always tell people, no matter how you feel about Richard Pryor or the choices that he made in his life, his impact socially and culturally, and certainly in the world of comedy, it's undeniable. Yeah. And we need to recognize him and the significance that he made as a spokesperson for a very specific time in our history.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of other little things going on too with there's some movies. There's a Jazzy Pajama Story Time that celebrates Black history.
Yeah, we've got a lot. Full calendar of events.
McClure has some movies, and you can find all those on our calendar. But let's move on and talk about Valentine's Day, another big, huge feature.
Another big, huge feature, Valentine's Day. Last year, remember the programming department throwing around several ideas for Valentine's Day, and then that came into fruition. One was an anti-Valentine's Day. One was speed dating at the library. I hate to tell people that it's not going to happen in 2013. But if you're interested in a blind date, you can trek on down to Lincoln Branch at any point between February 1st and the 15th. They're going to have a very special display set up of books that are wrapped, so you have no idea what the books are. I believe they were selected from young adult on up.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to check out a mystery book and go home with a blind date, and like a regular blind date, see if it works or not. And if not, return it to the library.
Off it goes, but you might discover a new love.
You might become totally entranced with whatever you find
with your blind date with a book. So that's really a fun fun thing to do.
That's a fun thing. Anytime available. Also at the Lincoln branch, they're going to be creating flowers out of duct tape.
Yes.
That's closer to Valentine's Day. I'm not certain on the date, but I know they'll be using duct tape's kind of the rage right now.
It
Have
is.
you noticed that?
Well, there's so many patterns and colors, and when I first heard about that program, I thought, art in the library, duct tape, flowers. And so I, of course, went and looked it up on the internet. And I was astounded by what people can make out of duct tape.
They can make prom dresses.
Yeah.
They can make wallets. They can, but at the library, you can just try it out, see if that's a medium that works for you.
Yeah.
No huge commitment, kind of like the blind book checkout process.
Exactly.
And then, hopefully get a nice take home for that. So we're excited about that craft.
That'll be a lot of fun.
That'll be a lot of fun. Also, well, we've got a marathon of movies.
For Valentine's
Day.
Right? You can literally just lose yourself for an entire day in romantic comedies.
You can.
Or you can just come for the ones you want to see.
You can, and it's all day on the 13th. And I believe that was planned so there'd be actually no conflict with the actual Valentine's Day on the 14th.
Yes.
So you can thank the programming department for that, for not conflicting with your
Or
Valentine's
if
Day
you want to
plans.
think about it this way, it stretches Valentine's Day out for 2 days.
It's the precursor. It's the lead in.
Yes.
And we've got movies, I believe 50 First Dates is one of the movies.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle.
And The Breakup.
And The Breakup, which, why do you have to go there? It's
Yeah.
the day before Valentine's Day. But it'll be good. And again, we always talk about how fantastic the facilities are, especially at Main and at North Branch, with that beautiful screen, the incredible sound quality. The seats are even comfortable. We will have treats. It'll be a great way to come down. And I'm certain it'll be cold. Most Valentine's Days are freezing cold.
Yeah.
Come down to the main library, spend a couple hours.
Well, and there's a break at lunchtime, so you literally could make a day of it, whether you come with your sweetie or by yourself or your friends or a group of people. And you can, watch movies, go out to lunch, come back, or bring a sack lunch and eat in our lounge between movies. And it's all free.
It's all free.
It's all free.
It's also on a Wednesday, so they would have the opportunity of just going right across the hallway and visiting our Friendly Finds book club, which it's a fantastic facility. It's open only on Wednesdays and Thursdays, generally from 1 to 4. Since that falls on a Wednesday.
They're open on Saturdays all through February and March.
Oh, wonderful. So they're extending that.
Extra
and they are
time.
jam-packed. So we want people to come down and buy some books. And
bring your dimes and quarters because that's all it costs to get fabulous, fabulous reads.
That's true.
Yeah.
Bags of books.
Yeah, bags of books. And of course we can always use more friends, volunteers too. So if given a few hours to the library to put books on the correct shelf down there in the bookstore it goes a long way to help pay for all these other programs that we bring to the community for free.
It is, although I do think that the main complaint when you are a volunteer for the Friends is that you generally walk away with more books than you ever anticipated. So you do have a lot of book lovers down there, and I tell you, they have it organized so perfectly down there.
It is.
They're all librarians at heart. You can just tell by the way that they love to give recommendations and organize their collection. And it's an absolutely enjoyable time when you
Much
go in
different, and I still am getting phone calls. People want to know when we're having our big book sale, when all the books are out, and that's all the time.
All the time.
Every book we have is out all the time.
Every library location, you can buy a book.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yep.
Going on a trip, what I've always done is I like to buy books at our library book sale rooms and then just leave the book when I'm done with it.
Yeah, because you don't have to worry about losing it or
haven't
lost
invested in
luggage.
it.
And
You
the
got
great
it.
thing to do is travel with those. Yeah. Well, let's talk some more about. Of course, we have all of our usual story times, but
Yes. In all of our
name
locations.
some of them?
So, well, we've got Little Lambs and we have Tiny Tots and we have the Sprouts, and North Branch has a very specific one called the Swarm because of our bees.
yeah. Well, that one's the book club.
That's the book club.
Yeah, Busy Bees.
Busy
is
Bees.
Our little story time.
Really, you can't throw a rock at any library branch without finding a story time with one of our fantastic children's librarians. We do have some librarians that travel around a little bit, but for the most part, they are really dedicated to their branch. They know their population and the times. You could go every day out of the week and go to a story time.
You
Easily.
could go to story time every day.
Yeah.
Just skip preschool. Just do story
Just
time
do
at
story
the
time.
library.
It's free.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about Busy Bees in the North Branch. We should talk about, of course, we have a live observation hive, and it's very cold out now, and we're not quite sure what's happened, but the bees might not be doing as well as they have, and we don't want to upset children at all. We have put the covers on, trying to make it dark and cozy.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have signs up that talk about how there's no work to do outside, so the bees are sleeping.
Yeah.
Part of the theory is that there's a hive outside that they're going out to, and they're getting way too cold when they go out to that other hive. And because the observation hive is lit up, you know, all the time, by putting those covers on for a couple of months and keeping it very dark and cozy, hopefully the bees will stay inside and rest up, so they'll be ready for spring.
Yeah, like us, they need a vacation.
Yeah, they need a vacation. They need a time away from everybody peering at them and the bright lights. And so I know that the kids and the parents too love to see the live bees, but we're just going to let them take a little rest here, and so they'll be ready for spring. So I hope that doesn't disappoint people.
Yeah, we do get a lot of people who come out specifically. They want to stop by and check on our bees.
See the bees.
But you know, we
have art bees you can look at in the meantime, and books about bees.
And the Swarm Book Club and honeycomb on the walls, and plenty of other opportunities to enjoy them when they are fully rested.
Yeah, we were very lucky that the Humane Society actually gave us a grant and bought all books about bees, and so we have a lot of bee books available.
We do. And we've got that wonderful beekeeper. You know, she comes out. I've never once seen her not be available for a question, and she gets a fair amount of questions. People are so curious. She's very polite, knowledgeable, and we are very fortunate to have that at our North Branch. So hopefully we'll have it for quite a bit longer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another thing that happens in February is Academy Award season.
Yes.
And we're celebrating that one. That's later in the month.
It is later in the month. It starts the 19th of February. And that's going to be at the North Branch. Again, we use that screen a lot in the afternoon. We find that people have a very good time coming out. It's easy for them to park and get in and out of the building for that. And we get a lot of movie people out there. For those people who just saw the Golden Globes, that probably whets their appetite and gets them all ready for the Oscars. And the Oscars are the big show.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we all wait for. And we've been lucky enough to find some wonderful films that are very popular as well as recognizable as Academy Award winners. And we will be showing those at the North Branch, kicking off with Casablanca on the 19th.
Yeah, we have Casablanca. Well, that one's actually at Lakeview Branch.
Oh, that's at Lakeview, pardon.
Yeah, and then The Apartment is at North Branch.
Yes, a classic. Jack Lemmon, I believe.
And then we've got Rain Man, and Rain Man is at Main Library. And then, of course, we have one more, Unforgiven
the
back at Lakeview.
So we've got a little bit of everything. We've got
variety.
Casablanca with film noir. We've got The Apartment, which I believe is a little bit more of a lighthearted comedy. Rain Man. Certainly.
Everybody's seen these movies at home, but when have you seen them on a big screen?
Yeah, exactly,
so,
for free.
And what did people consider, what did the Academy consider to be the best picture in those different eras? Very, very different. But you've got another series, and we've had some wonderful shows come through the area at the Civic Center, and all of them were before Broadway.
Before Broadway. So I was looking at the Civic Center listing, and they had some fantastic offerings this year. Billy Elliot and The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and these were everything that they were putting out there was something that was a movie first, which is so odd, to me.
Yeah.
That reversal is very interesting, that it can make that transition from movie to the big screen, and you certainly see it now with things like Bring It On, and Legally Blonde has been so popular. So I decided to try a before Broadway series, and I thought people are going to be coming here to see the plays. Let's go back and see what Beauty and the Beast was like before they made it into a stage production. Or, I remember seeing Mary Poppins as a kid. I've never seen the play version, but boy, I kind of want to go back and see that again. And February will be our Mary Poppins selection. We can see Julie Andrews. She doesn't sing anymore. And Dick Van Dyke is so wonderful in that movie. And that is a true all-ages movie.
It is. It is. And so fun, especially if you're going to see it on the stage and you can compare the two. That's always a lot of good time.
It will be. It will be. And classics like West Side Story, sometimes we forget just how good those movies are.
Exactly. And why they were made into a play, why they were made into a musical eventually.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we've got something for college students, too. They have an ongoing series that's aimed directly at those kids that are in the later years of high school, and it's called College Savvy. And
this month we're focusing on the FAFSA, which if anybody has had to fill out any kind of form at any point involving financial aid or grants or even scholarships, it can be overwhelming.
Yes.
And it's certainly now more than ever, we need to look at these alternate ways to finance our education because money is tight.
Yeah.
Schools are suffering.
Well, and what parents, and having just been through this with, all my kids are out of college now, but having gone through it through a long period of time, I was very resentful about why do they need to know all this? Why do they need this? Why do they need that? And we're not going to qualify anyway. But what I found out is if your children would qualify for a scholarship, they won't award the scholarship unless you've done this. And the reason for that is they try to give scholarships only to people who don't have any other way to finance their education. So if you qualify for financial aid, they try to get you to do that first. And that financial aid can come in the form of a grant, but it can also come in the form of qualifying for on-campus employment.
Yes.
And so many of the jobs, you can't get a job on campus, which those are the good ones because those are the ones that work around your class schedule, not like working, at a big box store or a fast food joint. They'll work around your schedule. They're conscious of what you have to do for school, and a lot of times it can be in the department you're majoring in. So although it's a torturous process, we've tried to make it much less so by taking you step by step through what to expect. And if I were the parent of even a sophomore or a junior, I would be going to this program now. Don't wait until your senior year.
Senior year's too late.
Senior year's too late. You need to learn about this stuff in sophomore and junior year. And too many parents think that, I'll worry about that after they graduate. And by then,
it's too late.
You're not going to get anything.
And that's a wonderful point, because going early when you don't need to go and just getting kind of enculturated with the verbs and the terminology. And how many times have we gone to one of those things, whether you're learning to buy a house for the first time or financing an education, and you go home and you think of all these other questions. And boy, buy yourself that luxury for free to go in there. And a lot of times you see the parents talking to each other about it. It really is a wonderful service, and I can't remember when the deadlines are for filing those, but definitely if your child's a junior.
They stretch out a ways, but if you want first crack at the pot of money, you have to file them in February if you can. As soon as you get you have to have your taxes for the year done. But as soon as you finish your taxes, then you need to jump in and get that done. And some tax preparers will do it for you, but why pay somebody else to do it? Once you have your taxes done, it's very easy to complete that yourself, but it's things like the parent and the child each have a separate username and PIN number. And and then you have to keep track of those because those follow you for all eternity once you get a loan, and 10 years later you're still paying your college loan and you still need that same PIN number and username.
Oh my gosh.
It's it's a lifetime commitment to pay for an education these days.
It is. And things change so quickly year by year.
They do.
Get a jump on it now.
They absolutely do. But we have a whole series of these programs. They have ones about visiting colleges and all sorts of things. And so we have still, even with all we've talked about, we have Baroque art, discovering great artists. We're doing duct tape at Lincoln Branch and making the art, but now, at Lakeview, we're doing Baroque art and doing a Rembrandt-inspired project.
And they've done some really interesting art projects at Lakeview Branch. They've had a lot of local artists come in, whether they're working photography or other mediums. And they've been doing very, very well in getting people out there and used to it. And we really can't have a conversation about art without talking about the gallery at the main library.
Yes.
We have kind of a different exhibit going on, continuing from January. Thankfully, with your knowledge, we were able to pull some of the treasures out of our inventory of our permanent collection. And this has been a real treat because these are pieces that maybe they've been donated, maybe they've been purchased, but they don't see the light of day very often now that we've done our renovation.
Yeah, and they were not well displayed in the first place. They were many of them were from the old 1890s library where you had expansive ceilings, you had fireplaces, you had a lot of wall space, and then in the 60s we lost a lot of that, and we had some of these paintings hung in odd places up high near the ceiling, or where you couldn't really see them, in dark corners, they weren't lit. And people say, why do you have all these paintings? And most of them, I can't think of anything we've ever purchased. I think they were all donations. But if you remember, we didn't have a museum here until the 1960s. And the library existed from like the 1840s and 50s on. So these things were donated as we went through the subscription libraries into the tax-supported libraries. And I think we gained a lot of art at the time that people moved out of their big, huge Victorian homes into smaller homes, and they had paintings as large as you that didn't fit in the new house, and they donated them to the library.
Sure.
There was no place else to go with them. But as a result of that, we do have a lot of interesting things.
We do.
We have the barometer from the original 1890s library that was donated, all painted in gilt with our name.
It's beautiful. That really is probably one of the most incredible pieces in that collection.
Yeah. An important tool for librarians in the day when there was no air conditioning or heating, trying to preserve the integrity of the materials, and you could tell, is it going to rain? Quickly close all the windows.
Right. We have
that
a beautiful,
type of thing.
we have a panoramic photo of Grandview Drive. Now,
that's spectacular.
We are so used to panoramic photography with digital images, but we have to just sit back and imagine what it took to have that, that panoramic photo that really is hand tinted with almost like a beautiful Japanese type of pagoda. I mean, it is gorgeous, gorgeous. And you wouldn't find that anywhere in Peoria.
No, and you can go up and find the exact spot where it was taken, but in the days when they used to do those panoramic, they did them of, military units and school bands and that type of thing, but you don't see that many landscapes.
You don't, and we have some beautiful oil paintings, some very significant pieces. Actually, the piece of James Fenimore Cooper is one that is as tall as I am, literally, and hanging it was a challenge, and I wouldn't tell anybody this, but it might even be a little crooked because it was very hard to hang.
It's very large, and it's in a very
it.
old Victorian frame, and that was donated to the library very early on, and it used to hang over the fireplace in the main reading room.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, people may look at it and it's got a beautiful painterly quality and it's very well done, but then some of the art experts may look at it and say this is a terrible composition because it has a huge window and James Fenimore Cooper's kind of over in the corner. So I would invite everybody to come and look, and what do you think? Is this a good painting or not? It was done by somebody who was, skilled and minorly famous, and you wonder, it was done right after James Fenimore Cooper actually passed away, I think. We have our mystery lady too.
I would love for somebody to come to the library and tell us who the mystery lady is.
And I don't think we'll ever know, because after it's a half painting. We have determined that it was cut off and the bottom probably was burned, but it's a waist-up portrait of a woman from the 1770s, pretty sure European. Library authorities spent years searching the world trying to determine who this was painted by and who's in the painting, and no one has ever found out. There was this whole thing about it was Sir Walter Scott's mother, and it wasn't.
That's random.
Yeah. Well, the person who donated it was told that's who it was. They bought it. They bought it at an auction, I think, in New York. So great mystery of the library who this woman is, but it's a beautiful portrait.
It's beautiful.
And recently people have looked at it and they said they're pretty sure it's Dutch, but nobody knows who painted it or who the subject of the painting is.
It's interesting. And, it's very fun to go down into that gallery right now and see a cross-section of mediums and expertise and, and subjects.
It's very random. As you said, random. It is random. And it's like such a mixture of everything.
But
modern,
it's really a
old.
testimony to the library being a community space because everything's represented. We have some really interesting artifacts. Speaking of the Oscars,
we do.
A very hot movie right now is Lincoln. So tell us about the Lincoln pieces that we have down there.
We have a telegram that was signed by Abraham Lincoln. The telegram, he used a scratch paper. The telegram is about something, and he flipped it over and wrote a note on it, and it's signed. Really Abraham Lincoln's signature.
It's pretty amazing.
It doesn't have anything to do with Peoria.
No.
I don't know how we got it.
But
it
it's
was
a treasure.
Donated, and it's a treasure. And we have some engravings of Lincoln and Washington that we have hanging up.
We have one saber and two incredible flags.
A War of 1812 saber, an officer saber, when you look at the paperwork, it was donated by a woman who said her great-great-grandfather used it in the Civil War. But he was in the South where they reused things from earlier wars, and it is definitely a 1812 era saber, which of course, this is the 200th anniversary, and if you haven't looked into that, this could be, something to tweak your interest a little bit.
Definitely.
The flags, we have a 38-star flag that belonged to Captain Detweiler. It's wool, it's printed, it's got a patent mark of, I think, 1876 on it.
Incredible.
I have no idea how that ended up at the library, but so fun to look at, 38 stars.
Yeah.
I often wonder if young people today know that at one time people owned a flag with 38 stars, and we have a flag with 48 stars. I remember when we had 48 stars. I remember when all the flags had to be redone. I was very, very young, but I do remember when we had 48 states and got 50, and all the flags had to be redone. So this flag isn't anything remarkable. It's just a nylon flag with fringe on it. We don't know who it belonged to. It might have even just been one of the library flag that we kept because we were replacing it. But it's still fun, and I think it's great, especially for people to remember those days, but also to point out to kids that, hey, the flag didn't always look like this.
That's right.
It didn't always look like this.
I can't compete with a 48-star flag, but I can remember when the globes had to be redone because of West and East Germany.
Oh.
Not quite the same. And of course, anybody who watches the show knows probably that you are wonderful with history. It's one of your passions.
It is.
And one of the most exciting things was kind of to go through this with you, and you explained to us why this was significant, why it may or may not have been accurate. And I'm thinking, we're getting such a deeper breadth of understanding for this that I would have never gotten otherwise.
Well, so and that came from working with our local history and genealogy people, and the fact that
yes.
I grew up in Peoria, so I knew the library. We have the doorknob from the original old library.
We do, and it's just on display. You cannot miss it. It's perfect.
They cut the wood out and put the doorknob. It usually hangs in the director's office, but she let us bring it down. And we have the embosser that used to stick in it.
The greatest.
Peoria Public Library on your books.
And of course, guarding over this entire collection are the two lion heads from the original library,
yep.
which we have a painting of next to the modern library. And as we were hanging this show, many of our local genealogists and historians were using the resources in the room on that same floor.
Yep, which you can do.
You can do, and many of them came out with wonderful stories and commentary on the way we were hanging the show. So, which of course usually helps with it as well, but it was really neat to be in using the resources with such a wonderful collection all gifted to us.
Well, Stacy, it's been great having you here.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Everybody will want to get down and see the Treasures of the Library along with all the movies we have going on this month and all the other events, Black History. Just look at our calendar and our website, PeoriaPublicLibrary.org, or pick up Passages or Kid events. And we'll be back here next week with another installment of Information Please.